So you've made it through all the logistics and background stuff, and we're ready for the actual keynote address. And this year we've asked Kevin Ragsdale to speak to us. Kevin has been a FoxPro developer since 1993, which I think is sort of in the middle of the pack in this room. He's spoken here at Southwest Fox several times, and he is the author of the VFPX Desktop Alerts project. And he's fun to be with, and is going to present for us the Fox family, a whimsical celebration of FoxPro and the FoxPro community.
I gotta tie it on.
Yeah, sure. No, make sure.
I can't see.
As long as you can tell.
Okay, so can everybody hear me right now?
Yes.
Yes.
I would apologize because the day of the keynote I decided to lose my voice. And I've got to say, this has been a 10-year dream for me. I guess like puberty all over again. And also, I know that Stacy got a shout out a few minutes ago for the escape room, but thanks to the problems I've been having with my voice, Stacy went to the bar and bought me a cold herbal tea. So I want to give him a shout out. If anybody else wants a shout out, I'll drink them through the whole thing. I've done a few practice runs, and the shortest one that I've done was 2 hours and 49 minutes. So buckle up. And I know everybody is probably used to, okay, nobody look, okay, because that's not supposed to be what you're seeing. Everybody close your eyes. I'm serious. I'm looking. You're all looking. Wait, I forgot what I'm doing. Oh yeah, I was doing a slideshow. Okay. I know y'all laughed a couple of times, but I really wanted tonight to be serious because we're talking about the Fox family. But I did want to get a couple of jokes out of the way before we get going. The first one's a good programmer joke. I mean, we're all programmers, right? And what do programmers do? We solve problems. And how do we solve problems? That's easy. We have different ways of thinking compared to the rest of the population of the world. So the first joke, you've probably all heard it before. A wife sends her programmer husband to the grocery store. She said, buy a gallon of milk. And if they have eggs, buy a dozen. And he comes home with a dozen gallons of milk. So I figured it would be good to have a graphical representation. Most people that go to the park and see a sign like this pick up the dog's poop, right? But not the programmers. And now I'm going to be serious. First thing I'm going to have a verbal tea. Okay, so welcome to Southwest Fox 2019. Like I said, it's been a 10-year dream for me to do the keynote at Southwest Fox. You'll probably notice that I do a lot of walking when I do a presentation. Part of it is because of the herbal tea. I start to get urges, and you can't really just stop in the middle of a session and go to the men's room. And the other reason is, Doug is kind of a threatening presence, and I'm afraid he's going to throw stuff at me. So I just need to keep moving. For those of you who don't know me or have never met me before, I am a FoxPro developer. I've been very blessed throughout my career, very blessed. And currently, in the last few years, I've been working for Bo Durbin. and working with an excellent team of developers he's put together, including Paul Becker and Alan Balkin, who are here at the conference at Zoom Geeks. And you know, I like to say, as far as like experience goes, for with FoxPro, 25 years, 59 pounds, and a head full of hair ago, I started using FoxPro. And if you look around the room, you'll probably see quite a few people that appear to have similar experiences as I do. If you still don't know me, but you think, I think I've seen him before, I can't put my finger on it, but I've got a feeling that this guy looks familiar. You've probably seen me featured in a Netflix documentary. It's called I Don't Always Test My Code, but when I do it in production. Now, you guys are laughing, but I tell you one person that's not, and that's Bo. Because he lives this every single day. For those of you who do know me, and you got the notice that Kevin's doing the keynote this year, your first question was probably, why is Kevin doing it this year? And, I'll let you in on a little secret. I wasn't the first choice. Okay? We were going to have an educational, a motivational, and frankly terrifying talk about cybersecurity by America's foremost cybersecurity expert, Rudy Giuliani. I don't keep up with current events, and I really don't watch the news all that much, but apparently Rudy's got some things going on in his life, and he couldn't be here this weekend. So the nice folks at Geek Gatherings went through their Rolodex, and everybody said no, and they got to the R's, and I was like, Shaw. So I'm here. And since I mentioned that it's a 10-year dream, I want to start up the flux capacitor, and we'll get it to 1.9 gigawatts, and we're going to go back in time 10 years, all the way back to Southwest Fox 2009. That was the second time I had been to Southwest Fox. The first time I came was in 2005, and I had just kind of like introduced myself to the community, like blogging and stuff, but I really wanted to go to a conference. And I got out here to Phoenix in 2005, and I was a total wallflower. I met a few people, but I didn't really talk to anybody, other than just a few people. And that was afterwards I ended up speaking at a conference in 2006. It was Fox Forward. I started doing like user group meetings and stuff, and then in 2007, I got asked to speak at DEF CON, which was like the ultimate. Because, DEF CON, like thousands of people show up at DEF CON. And the other speakers were like Tamar Grainer, Rick Schummer, and Doug Hennig. And I was like, holy cow, they called me. We're like peers now. And at this point, the only one of the three of them that I'd actually met in person was Rick Schummer. So it was going to be the first time I got to meet Tamar and Doug. A few months after I spoke at DEF CON, Advisor announced that they weren't going to do any more DEF CONs. And also there was only 35 people there. So then I spoke at Fox Forward again later that fall. And a couple of months after that, they announced that they weren't going to do that conference anymore. So far, I'm 2 for 3 at killing visual FoxPro conferences. So keep your fingers crossed that we're going to do this again next year. Now, if I go back to 2009, I had decided, I'd become part of the community, sort of, and I was tweeting, and I was meeting all these wonderful people in the FoxPro community. Never met them before, but you know how it is when you start to feel like you know people, and they're your friends, and you just can't wait to meet them in person. So this was the last year that we were at the Arizona Golf Resort. Y'all remember that? And you remember the grotto? Right? A lot of people gather at the grotto. And, well, there's the grotto right there. And this particular year, Mike and Tony Feltman had like this big corner suite at the resort. And it was like walking distance to the grotto. So people would go and gather at the grotto, and then people would go over to Mike and Tony's, and you go back and forth because it's walking distance. By the end of the week, for me, it was like stumbling distance between the two, for obvious reasons. And everybody had a great time. There's Alan Stevens and Mike Feldman. And, you know, I had the time of my life. It was like the best weekend ever. And the best part was just getting to meet all of these people that I knew, but I had never met. And some people had more fun than the rest of us, Frank. And now while I'm talking, I'm going to get to the whole 10-year dream. I'll just kind of flip through some pictures as I go along. Y'all can like relive memories, like Throwback Thursday, I guess. But the last night of the conference, I didn't really know what to do. And I decided to go to Mike and Tony's suite. And I walked in, and I was in the kitchen, and Doug and Mike Feldman were in the kitchen. And there was an island in the kitchen. It's almost like where this table is. And Mike and Doug are laughing, people are coming in, we're having a good time and all. But right here was a refrigerator. And inside that refrigerator was a lot of beer. And so I thought to myself, this is where I want to be. I want to be here in the kitchen with a lot of beer and Doug and Mike, because they're fun people to hang out with. And so, I don't know. That year I had done the Show Us Your Apps. I did like a little 10-minute demo of like multi-threading the visual FoxPro that I had stolen from Christoph and passed off as my own. But I did give him some credit, because I like to say Christoph is a freaking genius. Which I thought I had invented that phrase, but apparently you guys had been saying it for like 20 years. Which is amazing, because he's only 17 years old. But I did the Show Us Your App, so I'm at Mike and Tony's that last night, and I guess it was somewhere around like the 12th or 15th beer or something like that. I turned around and looked at Mike and Doug, and I said, you know what I always wanted to do? I always wanted to speak at a conference, but do a session in an entirely different voice, which oddly I'm doing tonight. So then I started doing my Show Us Your Apps presentation, but I was doing different voices and doing impressions and stuff like that. Those two are laughing their heads off, which I thought was like the coolest thing in the world. I thought the more they laugh, the more I'm going to try to make them laugh. And to make them laugh, I would have another beer. So around like beer 18, apparently my language is a little colorful when you get that high on the beer scale. And Mike is still laughing, and he's like, Doug, Kevin should do the keynote next year. And it was like, bing! I was like, all of a sudden in my mind, I was like, yeah. Speak at Southwest Fox, and you don't have to write a white paper. I mean, come on, that's a good gig right there, right? And apparently Doug was thinking, no. And the only reason I say that is because Doug, who is still laughing at everything I'm doing, he's like in mid-laugh, he's like, Kevin Ragsdale does the keynote at Southwest Fox over my dead body. And, you know, it was like 5 seconds before a dream was born. And then it was crushed. And, you know, Doug, words matter. And, you know, it's sort of like you go through life and you remember phrases and the tone of voice and the people who said certain things to you that just get marked on your brain. And I'll give you an example. If you hear like Maury Povich go, Kevin, you are the father. That's like a life-changing thing that's going to stay. Or if it's my own father's voice who says, what do you expect when you married a stripper? And then, of course, there's over my dead body. So over the last 10 years, just about every year, a few weeks before the conference, I'll contact Rick or Doug and I'll say, hey, I don't know if you guys have picked a keynote speaker this year. I just wanted to let you know I'm available. And Rick's usually like, no. And Doug is like, for my dead body. And also, well, if he did, it would probably be the last conference ever, and you've already killed 2 of them. So, when I was talking about people having fun at this particular conference, I don't know if you guys know it or not, but I got this picture from Kathy Poutney, and I don't know if you know, but Frank is an excellent painter. Now, I know you're laughing, but if you really want to know the funny thing, notice I said he was the painter. That's Kathy's foot. No, I'm kidding. But I do think that was the tile from the grotto, I'm not sure. But, and here's a couple of extra pictures that Kathy had sent me. I wanted to put this one in here because that's the coolest looking office setup ever to me. Because there's just so much rocks. There's so much Fox and so much rocks all over the office. And then, of course, there she is with the gigantic Visual FoxPro 7 box. And I can just imagine how heavy the CD was. So we go back, and we jump forward 10 more years, and I get the call. And it's Rick, and I'm talking to Rick on the phone, and he was like, hey, we talked, and we were thinking if there was anything that you thought you might want to talk about at the conference this year, throw us some ideas if you're interested in the keynote. And you know how you get like a wave of emotions that just comes over you, like a tsunami, and the first emotion I got was just pure joy. I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. I get to do the keynote. But then suddenly, there was this wave of concern and sadness. And I'm on the phone, and I was like, Rick, is Doug okay? And he's like, yeah, he's alive and well. We talked about it. So he said, how about if you just give us some ideas and give us some abstracts for the ideas, because you can come up with a title and not even talk about that. Like Fox Family, but I've just spent 20 minutes talking about me. So send us some ideas and some abstracts, and if we like them, we'll get back with you. I said, okay, we're getting ready to hang up, and I said, whoa, Rick, wait a second. Have y'all talked to tomorrow? And he said, yeah. So the first idea I came up with was kind of a natural for me. And it was Geek Gatherings Celebrity Roast. Doug Henry. And the abstract was just plain and simple. It was like one sentence. This will be a brutal, quite possibly profane look at Doug and his many contributions to the FoxPro community. And I gotta be honest though, I was being kind of selfish because I thought this would be the easiest keynote ever. I'm gonna get up and talk for like 4 or 5 minutes, and then every single person in the room is gonna want to come up and take a minute or two to have a shot at Doug. But they said no, they didn't like that idea. So apparently the vote was like 2 to 1. But I'm not really sure if Doug didn't vote yes. And like I said, the early parts or test runs that I did on this keynote were kind of long. The easiest thing for me to do was take out about 90 minutes worth of Doug jokes. And that cut it down quite a bit. So I will do the one Doug joke that I haven't already done. I don't know if you guys know it or not, but Doug was the inspiration for the anger management therapist on South Park. You know it's true. I mean, look at that. There's Doug. There's Doug. So I actually wanted to play the video clip. But they had asked me not to be profane, and I couldn't find one that wasn't profane. So then I had to think of something else. And I got to thinking, I went to the website for Southwest Fox, and it said this year was the 16th annual conference. It was like 16 years. That's unbelievable. This conference is old enough to drive a car. And 16, I'm 53. If I lived in Alabama, Arkansas, Mississippi, this conference is old enough today. And I kind of started going back in time, and I go all the way back to like 2004. That's the year they had the first Southwest Fox conference, which just happened to coincide with the release of Visual FoxPro 9. And I mean, you guys remember the whole history with FoxPro and Visual FoxPro. Microsoft merged with Fox Software, and it's like, well, that's it. That's the end of FoxPro. Microsoft's going to rip out the best parts and kill it. Then they come out with Visual FoxPro 3. Well, that's it. They're going to kill it. Then we had 5, and then we had 6. And I mean, we all thought, I mean, I know I thought 6 was like the end of the road. And then they came out with 7, and then 8, and then 9. And if I fast forward to like 2007, that was the 4th annual Southwest Fox Conference. The first one that Doug and Tamar and Rick had organized. And that was the year that Microsoft released Service Pack 2. And then they were working on the segment components. But that was also the year that a few months before Southwest Fox, they made the announcement. And the announcement was, there will be no VFP10, right? Now they did some hot fixes. I think the last hot fix, the run times that I've got are dated April of 2009. This is 10.5 years ago. So I got to thinking, like, here we are, we gather in Phoenix every October, right? Just a group of people from the FoxPro community get together. And, you know, why do you go to a conference? You go because you want to learn things. You go because you want to network. And, you know, to be honest with you, I work for Bo, and that started out of a conversation that we struck up at Southwest Fox a few years ago. And, but it always felt like it was more than just going to a conference and learning things and networking. It always seemed like it was going to see old friends, going to meet new friends, all while we're talking about our mutual old friend, you know, Visual FoxPro. And so I came up with a title for a session. It's called the FoxPro. I actually got the title from Bob Pierce, a conversation that Bob and I had last year at Southwest Fox, and we were having almost the exact same conversation. Well, why do you come to the conference every year? I want to see old friends. I want to meet new friends. And Bob was like, well, they call it a FoxPro community, but it's really like a family. And I was like, yeah, you're right, because it does feel like family to me. So from now on, I'm going to call Bob Uncle Bob. I could have called him Brother Bob or Cousin Bob, but I thought, like, bonjour, uncle. Now, I got a relatively late start with FoxPro. Like I said, I've been working with FoxPro for like 25 years. I didn't even start with FoxPro until 2.6 for Windows. And I didn't even, like, you know, put my foot into the shallow water of the FoxPro community until 2005. Because one thing, I was too busy trying to learn FoxPro. Then I was too busy trying to learn Visual FoxPro. That I never really realized what a vibrant community that FoxPro had behind it. And, but I did do a lot of learning over the course of those years. And I did a lot of online learning, like with Universal Thread, which is now Level Extreme, and of course the Fox site. And that's where I started blogging, when Eric had opened up the weblogs on the Fox site community. Virtual Fox User Group, VFUG, and also, you know, the Fox Wiki. There's a ton of different resources that have been out there all this time. And I know everybody that's in the FoxPro community, or has been for a long time. I'll put it this way. How many people started with, like, FoxBase? Way, way back. Holy cow. You guys are old. Sorry. You know, the Fox base came out in what, 1984? Somewhere around there, 84, 85. You know, I was playing around with the Texas Instruments TI 99-4A. You remember those? You know, you had to have a cassette recorder and a little audio cassette that would go in, and then it plugged into the computer, and that's how you saved your stuff. It was on an audio cassette, and I thought I was Mr. Big Shot. But for everybody that really started early on back in the day through Fox software, the big thing, I went backwards, what was the CompuServe Fox forums, right? And that's where that community really started taking off. And it's something, you know, it's something weird about the FoxPro community is that it has been often imitated, but it has never been duplicated. Microsoft, when they merged with Fox Software, thought that they were going to be able to take that community and apply what made that community so great to their other products. And they failed, and they failed, and they failed, and they failed, because there just has never been anything like it before. I missed all of those things. I was never a part of the CompuServe Fox forum because I have Prodigy. And then also, I will say one thing about like the online resources. You know, I signed up for Universal Thread like years before I ever started blogging. And I would go on and read all the messages, and I would learn everything that I possibly could. But I wasn't, well, I mean, you guys know me. I'm a naturally shy person. I don't really come out of my shell. And so I didn't really ask any questions online. I certainly never answered any questions online. I guess I was what you would call like a creeper. A stalker. That's not right either. I was a lurker. I lurked. I was the Pierre Delecto of the FoxPro online community. And all the while all of this wonderful stuff is going on, and I really feel bad because I feel like I'm shortchanging the people that have been here forever, but I wasn't there. And you know, the abstract did say my personal attorney. But my FoxPro community was from all of the people that were sharing information, whether it was online or magazines or newsletters or writing books. So my first FoxPro community was FoxPro Advisor magazine. And oddly enough, every single one of those pictures of FoxPro Advisor magazine came from eBay. But I loved FoxPro Advisor. I didn't subscribe to FoxPro Advisor because I liked going to the bookstore. You remember this? And I would go, there was a bookstore nearby me that always got 2 copies of FoxPro Advisor every month. And I would go on like the 3rd Tuesday of the month, and I'm there and I get my copy. And then I would go to the programming, computers and programming section, which covered an entire wall. It was like 30 yards in the bookstore of computer programming books. You remember that too, right? And usually I would see if there was any new books that I could pick up and try to learn something. I learned so much from FoxPro Advisor magazine and also Fox Talk. And you know, it's really weird because you start to recognize the names of people that are writing the articles and answering the questions and things like that. You get used to certain writing styles of people. And it's almost like you create personalities in your mind. I hope you guys felt this, and I'm not just insane. But you get a picture in your mind of who these people are and how they are. I remember I've heard Tamar say before, you know, she was on CompuServe Fox Forum and then goes to a conference and everybody's like, Tamar, you're a woman. But,
and I said, yes, I know.
Yeah, it's the same reaction when you meet Doug. You're like, Doug, you're not a woman. And, sorry, Doug. But you know, you kind of get a feel for these people. And I remember like with Fox Talk, when Will Henson was the editor of Fox Talk, I loved that newsletter. And the thing I loved the most about it was I couldn't wait to see the letter from the editor. You know, the editors know from Will. I love his writing style. The guy's funny. You know, it's always relevant. And, you know, I was like, you know, I really want to meet Will one of these days. And to this day, I've never met Will in person. But we are friends on Facebook. So that's something. Of course, Fox Talk ended up being Fox Talk 2.0 and then Fox Rocks and all. But I guess what I'm saying is that I learned a lot of things from the FoxPro community. And the FoxPro community had no idea who I was. I was off in the shadows learning and just kind of going along. And that kind of leads me to the next section, which is FoxPro books. And like I said, I used to go to the bookstore, get my FoxPro advisor, and then I'd look to see if there was a new book on FoxPro 2.6 or Visual FoxPro 3 or something like that back then, before Amazon came in and killed all the bookstores. And you know, you remember when you went from like FoxPro 2.6 to Visual FoxPro? Remember that? Was that an easy transition or what? No, it wasn't, was it? That was the hardest thing I think I've ever done in my life. And in fact, it was so hard for me that I had bought a copy of the Visual FoxPro 3 code book just to get some idea of what the heck classes and subclasses and properties and events and methods and stuff like that were. And I got invited when Visual FoxPro 3 first came out. I got an invitation to go to a demo event at some place called Micro Endeavors outside of Philadelphia. And I go and the demos blew me away. I was like, holy cow, I can't believe this, because I haven't touched Visual FoxPro 3 yet, and they're doing all this amazing stuff. I was like, I ain't too sure about the speaker, but I liked the demos. And it turns out it was George F. Doley IV. That was the speaker. But I was blown away. But I never really went to 3. I got into Visual FoxPro when 5 came out. But there was one particular book that was a lifesaver for me, almost a Bible, whether you were using Visual FoxPro 3 or Visual FoxPro 5. And that was the Hacker's Guide to Visual FoxPro 3 that Tamar and Ted had written. And I mean, I put that book in tatters, just reading it. It was a fantastic book. You know, it had like almost a little bit of everything. You know, there's a manual, there's a reference, there's the tips, there's the tricks, remember the bugs, and things like that. They did all that work so that I didn't have to. And they expanded later on with the Hacker's Guide to Visual FoxPro 6. And this right here, where it says Henson Word Publishing, that's where I really started learning, when Will started publishing books on Visual FoxPro. And when Visual FoxPro 6 came out, it seemed like there was a new book every 2 months to me. There wasn't really, but it felt like there was. And I'll tell you one thing right now, I bought every single one of those books. When Will announced that he's got a new book, I bought that book. I didn't care if it had anything to do with my career and what I was doing. I wanted that book because I knew they were full of all the kind of information that I needed. And I want to go through just a couple of those books. The first one was, that meant a lot to me. It was the 1001 Things You Always Wanted to Know, the Kilo Fox book. And it was written by Marcia and Andy and Rick Schummer. And I remember when I went to the Southwest Fox 2005, I wanted to meet Rick because he always seemed like a really nice guy. I used to read his blog, and I check his website. You know, his logo was a lighthouse. It's like, let me guide you. You know? And I remember, you know, when you're thinking of personalities, you think of who these people are, and I was like, that Rick Schummer, he's got to be one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. And I went to Southwest Fox that year, 2005, and I got to meet Rick Schummer, and I had an actual conversation with Rick Schummer. And I walked away from there and I felt so proud, and I was like, doggone it, I was right. Rick Schumer's one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. And I kind of know him a little better. But one of the other people that I got to meet was Marcia Akins. And the reason that I got to spend a lot of time talking with her at Southwest Fox 2005 was because she was a smoker and I was a smoker, so we would rush right out to the smoking area and just have wonderful conversations. I think that was the year I met Craig Boyd, because he was a smoker and he would come out too. But, you know, I treasure that time that I had to speak. And I didn't really talk to a lot of people that year, but I did want to throw that in about Rick and Marcia and how important that was to me to actually meet these people that I considered to be rock stars. I mean, they were like my heroes. And I go to my first conference and they're speaking, and I'm in the same room with them, and it's just awesome. And the second big book, of course, is Megafox, because they were all paperback books, and I really cracked the spines on these books, right? Megafox was one of those that I constantly found myself going back to. I would read a chapter, and then it wouldn't really apply to what I was doing, but 6 months later, I would be doing something, and I'd say, you know, I think I saw that in Megafox, and I would go back and read it, and get me started again. The next book was not a programming book. It was Fox Tales, Behind the Scenes at Fox Software, and this is my original copy I got from Henson Ward. Everybody's read this, or I'm sure some people haven't. This was written by Kerry Neitz, and he was hired out of college to work at Fox Software when Fox Software was a very small company. I mean, he was there when it went from FoxBase Plus to FoxPro 1 and FoxPro 2, and then when the merger happened, he actually moved from Toledo to Redmond and became a Microsoft employee. And this is a fantastic read. He's a good writer, and if you have any interest at all in the history of FoxPro or Fox Software, if you have any interest at all about working in teams, if you've ever felt like everybody on the team is smarter than me, and I hope they don't ever figure that out, you know, something like that. It's just a wonderful read. The main reason I bought it when it first came out was because it was only $9.95, and for Henson work, that was a really cheap book. You know? So there's never been a time that I've read this book where I didn't start on the first page and complete the book like in one sitting. I never put the book down. Once I started reading it, it was a page turner. I went through the entire book. And I really, really like this book. And I like it so much. Kerry Neitz did a 10th anniversary edition. I guess he kind of self-published it, and it had an additional foreword in the book, and he also had a couple of pages of author notes. And I thought, you know, I really ought to get a copy of that from Amazon. And, you know, both of these books are available on Amazon. If you order in the next 45 minutes, you got Amazon Prime, have it shipped to the hotel. It'll be here before the conference closes on Sunday, and you can read it on plane on the way up. But I really wanted to read the extra forward, and I wanted to read the author's notes. And I also wanted to have a prop that I could hold up and look like I'm doing something during the demo. But otherwise, I don't really need this book because I've already got the old one. So I'm going to give this one to Southwest Fox, and they can give it away if they want to. And you don't really have to worry. I only read the forward. I only read the author's notes. It's a clean book. It's never been in the bathroom. I probably wouldn't borrow this one from you. Now, Kerry, when he moved out to Redmond, he also got, as part of the package, he got Microsoft stock options, like a lot of people did back in the day. And then, of course, Microsoft stock took off. And after he was there for a few years, he decided to exercise his options and become a full-time author. And Fox Tales was actually the first book he ever published. He had already written 2 books, but they were unpublished. And Will gave him a shot. He said, I think people would want to read this book, and publish this first book. He's now an award-winning sci-fi author. And there's one of his books that he's written. And I remember when I first saw that title, I'm like, there cannot be Amish vampires in space. And I'm thinking it's got to be like a niche, Amish, something. It's an acronym. It's some kind of sci-fi term I've never heard of, right? So I decided to look at the blurb for it. It says Jebediah has a secret, and I'm like, holy cow, it's literally Amish vampires in space. Now, the moral of that story is if you work in software development long enough, you will probably lose your mind. Now, there's one book that I haven't mentioned yet that probably had the most impact on my career. And it probably actually extended my FoxPro career. And that was Internet Applications with Visual FoxPro 6 by Rick Straw. That book came out in 1999. It's 20 years old. And that book has the most dog ears, the most highlights, the most underlines, the most cracked spine of any Henson workbook I've ever bought. And I'm going to jump back to 2005. Southwest Fox 2005. Rick Straw was an announced speaker at that conference. Well, my biggest goal, besides meeting some people in the FoxPro community, was that I wanted to meet Rick Straw. And I wanted to meet him because I wanted to be like, dude, your work, your blog, the tools you write, the book that I've used so much in my career has really helped my career, and I just want to say thank you. By the applause, that you remember when I was talking about how all these people were rock stars to me. Well, there's rock stars, and then there's Rick Straw. They even got the same initials, Rick Schummer notwithstanding. So I fly all the way across the country. I go to my first conference. I'm nervous as heck. You know, I meet very few people unless they smoked or if they were just the nicest guy in the world, Rick Schummer. But my goal was I want to meet Rick Straw and I want to thank him for the effect that he had on my career. The first day came and went, and I didn't work up the nerve to talk to him. The second day came and went, I didn't work up the nerve to talk to him. I go to a session on the third day of the event, and he's giving the session. You know how at the end, when the speaker is like taking down their laptop and stuff, people will walk up and talk to them, ask them questions, things like that. I was like frozen in my chair, and I couldn't go up and say hi to him. And then the next thing I knew, it was the closing session. And then poof, the conference was over. Everybody's dispersing. People are heading out to the airport, things like that. I had a later flight that night, so I was just hanging around. And I'm kicking myself the whole time. I was like, doggone it, all I wanted to do was meet Rick Straw. And I end up at the exhibitor section, you know, where the trade show and stuff is. And Rick had a booth there. And I don't know if it was Best Wind or Code or maybe both. But Rick was taking down the booth, and he had another guy working with him. And I was like, doggone it, Kevin, this is it. You got to go. You got to let him know. And I walked up to the booth, right? And I'm standing there, and I haven't said anything. And Rick is still busy. And then all of a sudden, he feels a presence, and he turns around, and he's like, can I help you? And my first thought was, oh my God, Rick Straw just holy cow. Maybe I'll get his autograph. And so I took a deep breath, and I was like, you know, in my mind, I'm like, dude, I just wanted you to know how much your work has had an effect on my career. Thank you. I took a deep breath, and I looked at him, and I said, thank you for the book. And he's kind of confused. He's looking at me, he's like, excuse me? And I'm like, okay, I messed that up big time, right? I don't even know where that voice came from. I didn't say what I wanted to say, so I got to give it another shot. I took a deep breath, and I was like, thank you for the book. Now he's totally confused. He's got this puzzled look on his face. He turns around and looks at the guy that's taking down the booth with him. He's like, we give away a book? And the guy's like, no, we didn't give away a book. So I'm like, all right, I'm 0 for 2. You got to do this, Kevin. Come on. And suddenly my real voice came out. It wasn't this one. And I was like, no. You didn't give me a book. I bought your book. And I just wanted to thank you for it because I wouldn't be doing anything on the internet if it wasn't for you. And he was like, you're welcome. And so then I was walking away, and I was like, I just had a conversation with Rick Straw. I had to share that story because it's true. It really happened. And, you know, there were so many books coming out from Henson work at the time. I was thinking, you know, hey, I blog. Maybe I should write a book. I shouldn't, because for all of the speakers you're going to see here this weekend, all of them are going to show you best practices. I'm not like exactly a best practices kind of guy. And speaking of the speakers, I guess I'm considered a speaker as a keynote speaker. I know that I'm not the youngest, and I'm not the handsomest, and I'm not the most professional speaker you're going to see this week. But let me tell you something. I'm not the smartest one either. And I always thought that if I wanted to write a book about my adventures in Visual FoxPro, I had a perfect title for it. It's based on an error message that I got from Visual FoxPro. And it was one I had never seen before, never even heard of, but it popped up right in the middle of a presentation I was doing at the Chicago FoxPro Users Group, and it was catastrophic failure. My adventures with Visual FoxPro. And I do my best thinking sitting down. And if you'll indulge me for a minute, I'll get serious here, and I'll kind of get serious. I can't get totally serious because that's just not my style. And I've been drinking herbal tea. There was a movie that came out back in 1998. It was called Fallen, and it had Denzel Washington in it. He played a Philadelphia cop, and he was battling demons and stuff like that. But there was a piece of dialogue in that movie that I just loved. And I've got the quote for it here on a slide. And it says, "There are moments which mark your life. Moments when you realize nothing will ever be the same. And time is divided into two parts. Before this and after this." And something about that quote just really stuck with me. And throughout my life over the last 20 years, it's like I can think of different points in my life where all of a sudden things changed. It was before that happened and after. And I'll give you an example. There was a time before I became a father. And then after I became a father. There's a time before I met my wife. And after I met my wife. So, time before I got arrested for the first time. And after I got arrested for the first time. But as far as my career went, and I really never had a career, so to speak. I worked at QVC, the shopping channel. Yeah, I answered calls and took orders, and every now and then they let me pull the lucky numbers, and they let me spin the prize wheel on TV. Then I went to Arbitron, and it was at Arbitron where I just fell over backwards into programming with FoxPro. So as far as my career goes, there was before FoxPro, and there was after FoxPro. And I've been using FoxPro for 25 years. I've been extremely lucky. I've been extremely blessed the whole time. And there is no way I ever would have used FoxPro as long as I have if it hadn't been for the Fox family. Because sharing information, teaching, mentoring, just the whole 9 yards. And, I read something, there was an article that I think Alan Driver and Lisa Slater-Nichols had written about the FoxPro community, and there was a piece in it that was just perfect. And it said, with the FoxPro community, it doesn't matter when you stepped in. Whether you were there back in 1986, 87, 88, 89, or whether you jumped in 2005, or even if you're jumping in 2019. It's all the same, and it's all part of the Fox family. And everybody in this room is a part of the Fox family. You're here. There's a lot of people who aren't here, but they're still a part of the Fox family. There's people that's moved on past Fox, and they're still a part of the Fox family. And sadly, there's more than a few people that have passed away, but you still feel their presence when you go to conferences. I feel it. And I didn't even meet a lot of the people that have passed on, that a lot of the people in here knew personally. And, it's just been a really important part of my life. Everybody in this room has been, even if I'm meeting you for the first time. to take a deep breath. And I just want to say to all of you, thank you. And, you know, I was going to say at the beginning, if you felt like ever clapping or hooping or hollering, Geek Gatherings was going to give me $5 every time. Yeah. And I wanted to mention standing ovation, and I was like, well, I'm not going to tell you to do it, but if you do, let's just say, Doug owes me. And that's it. Thank you. Hope everybody gets away from it. Oh, I am wearing the mic.
Hang on, the rest of you guys.
I'm so glad I didn't go to that.
Don, I just wanted to say something that, Kevin, thank you for inspiring all of us. A few minutes ago, I didn't really know what to say when these people were kind enough to hand me the trophy, because as many of you know, I don't usually say many serious things. So I just said thank you. When I went back to my seat, there was a text on my phone. My daughter is in labor with her first child. She went into labor about 15 minutes before the keynote started, and she instructed my wife, under no circumstances was she to text me or call me until the presentation was over. Well, my wife said, why? She said, because I know how much Southwest Fox means to her. So thank you. Now thank you.
All right, that's our keynote. So as soon as we're done, out the doors, around the corner, into the Desert Rose, have some drinks, meet the exhibitors, chat with your fellow conference attendees. Thank you very much.